Okay, I've been talking a lot about minimizing the digital influence in my life. So here's a proposition I had for myself. What if I could find a way to replace all of this stuff with one thing? And what is all this stuff? We have a Kindle, we have a notebook, we have a pen, index cards, iPad. What if I could replace them all with one thing? No, it's not this. This is the TPT slide. I might need it to open what we're going to open. I should do a video on this soon though. So let's grab the box. Supernote, which I need to zoom out for. And now you can see the mess on my desk. And the other lights I'm using to fill this dark corner over here because the overhead light is over here. Anyways, this is the Supernote. Let's see if I can open this without shaking the table and the camera too much. So far, I'm not going to need the box opener. Okay, before we go any further, this is going to be different than the typical Supernote because I did not order the standard Supernote. I ordered the Supernote with the Lamy pen. So, here, we'll start with opening the Lamy pen. So the Lamy AL Star in black, EMR. I don't know what the EMR stands for. It means stylus. At least it means stylus to me. Totally dropped something on the ground. Here's what I dropped. These are replacement nibs and a little thing for taking the nibs out. And here's the pen, which might look familiar to you. Down goes the light. Here's with the standard Lamy fountain pen that I have. This is the Safari. Nice little divots for holding the pen. I love this pen. That's why I wanted this as a stylus. How close can I get to the pen that I already love? Well, so far, pretty near identical. I think that the stylus is just a tiny bit bigger. See how it is oval shaped, and I think the lens is distorting that a little bit. The normal pen is circular, not complete, almost completely circular. And this is a little bit more of a pill shape, but pretty minor difference. Let's see. Yeah, maybe a millimeter or two difference. Clip the same on the top of the Safari. You have a plus. On the Star, you have, oh my goodness, a star. It's kind of like a North Star or a compass star. So let's see what it looks like. Well, it has the divots for holding, and it feels just like that pen. The only difference here is, let me pull over the other pen. Something about the fountain pen, because so you have your nib. There is a direction that you hold a fountain pen, right? You want the nib down like this, with the curved part of it up top. So we have divots for the fingers on either side that enable you to hold it the right way. But the underside is curved. There's no divot there because it matters how you hold this pen. Ink on the finger. But the stylus has 3 divots because it's a round tip. It doesn't matter. except that it does matter because, can you see that right there? That's a button, and that is an erase button. So when you're writing, you don't have to do anything on the screen. You can do that. Although I'm told on the Supernote it's quite easy to just put down 2 fingers and draw something to create an erasure. So that's the Lamy pen. It is plastic. Some people have described it as metal. That is not metal. That's plastic. And so is this. So it is the same pen, essentially. Let's get to this. This shadow right here you're seeing is from the phone. See, there's the overhead light. Finally a use for our TPT. Ooh, can I do it without cutting the box though? Fairly anticlimactic. So what is the Supernote? Well, the Supernote is an e-ink screen. This is kind of like a Kindle, except, as you can tell from the fact that I have a pen that came with it, you can write on this. So I'm going to tell you right now, when I open this, I'm going to check to see if there's a software update. And if there is, I'm going to stop the filming and update and then continue the filming, because I don't want to have my first impressions on camera be on software that's out of date. So, oh, we got a little magnetic flip here. That's nice. It's a nice box. I went with the black leather. I'll explain why in a minute, other than black leather is nice. I like black leather. Little placeholder. This strip here, this plastic strip with the one little notch right there. This is how you attach the Supernote to the case. And obviously, wrong pen. This is where you're going to put the pen. I won't do it right now. Let's get to the device. What's underneath? This is instructions and a sticker. I'm not going to open it because this is the part that I get bored when other people unbox. I don't care about the instructions. Charging cable. This is USB-C to... Can I do it with one hand? No. USB-A. Which means if I want to charge it off my laptop, I need to get something else. I think we can just slide this off if I'm correct. Yes. Oh my God, this is so light. So this is how we get... Let's go back to a different angle. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'm going to try to keep it at an angle like this so that you don't get that glare. Although it does show you how well the screen is diffusing the light. So you see the corona and how it's spread. That means that when you read this in sunlight, it's not going to blind you. Okay, what does this feel like? It is incredibly light. Actually, here, let's do a couple comparisons here. Is it lighter than index cards? No. Oh. How about I open the Kindle? How did I do that? Wow. This is hard because this is so much bigger and the weight is distributed in such a different way. I'm gonna turn this off. I think that'll help. At least I can turn it this way. Let's turn this other light off too. It's distributed over more area, and this is all condensed into one place, but I kind of want to say that the Supernote is lighter than the Kindle Paperwhite. This is like 2 or 3 years old, Kindle Paperwhite. It's hard. They're pretty close in weight. The size is making it really difficult to tell. Let's see the thickness. Let's bring that up close. Pretty comparable in thickness, I'd say, wouldn't you? This is deceptive because it's rounded corners. You know, it's like the Apple trick. You round the corners to make something look thinner, like the Apple Watch. Pretty darn close in thickness. Size, though. Considerable amount of difference. Now, this is important because it's so annoying. Here, I had it open. Let's look at that again. This is the amount of words you're getting on this page with, I'd say, a pretty normal size font that you would use on a device this size. You're going to get almost double that on this. Not exactly double, but pretty close. I don't know. That's pretty close. How about this? The notebook. How does this compare? We're not going to compare the device size. We're going to compare the screen size. Because in a notebook, there are no bezels, right? I'd say that's exact. This is a Midori notebook. So the notebook that I'm already used to writing in, and I have the exact same page size here. I actually thought that there was going to be a difference. Wow, that's fantastic. Because this, oh, actually, you know what? It's not a huge difference, but there is a tiny bit. It is a tiny bit wider, just a tiny bit. But I love this size notebook. I've bought bigger notebooks. I've bought smaller. This is the one I always go back to. So that's one positive towards whether this will help to replace these things. One more comparison. iPad. This is the iPad Pro. And actually here, hold on a second. Matte screen with e-ink. iPad. Which one's going to do better in the sun? When that's a giant flaming ball in the sky that blinds you, literally, which is going to do better? Size. Form factor. I'm going to do this upside down. I don't want to look at that the whole time, and neither do you. About the same size. This is the iPad Pro before they went with the flat sides. This is the rounded side iPad Pro from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever, 4 years ago, who knows. About the same size, but what needs to be pointed out, here's the size of this screen. And while the iPad deceptively looks like that's the whole screen, there we go. There's the bezels. So this screen is considerably smaller. That's a bad angle. Let me pull this down here. Okay, I have the bezels lined up there at the top. Now if we bring it down to the bottom, we're looking at a difference of maybe half a finger width. And width-wise, they're about the same width-wise. How about thickness? Did we do this already? iPad clearly thinner, which is not necessarily a plus. Let me grab something and I'll tell you a story. Before we go into the device, you might be asking, why do you want an e-ink screen? It's just black and white. Why do you want something that's going to be limited to just reading and writing, when you could have an iPad, which can do those things? You can get a stylus for this too. I have a stylus for it. I just can't find it. This can do so much more. Well, number one, there's that glare. Number two, even when you put a screen protector on there, you're still writing on glass, and you never forget you're writing on glass. Where's that stylus? That's what it sounds like to work with an iPad. Then there is the brightness issue. I think this is dead, so I'm not going to turn it on anyways. The brightness, even turned down to the most on the iPad, still strains my eyes. It might not strain everybody's eyes, but it still strains my eyes. And believe me, I have tried with the iPad. As I said, this is the iPad Pro. I got the Apple Pencil. I got the keyboard case, the original keyboard case. And I rocked it for a while. But I go back before that. I had the iPad Mini. I don't know if this is the original iPad Mini or second generation. I even have the original iPad. Remember when it was shaped like this? Look how chunky that is. Actually, let's see something. If you ignore the bezel, they're about the same thickness. But if you accept the fact that this is deceptive and it's actually this thick, it's out here, this is almost 50% thicker than the Supernote. So I have tried everything with the iPad, and with all three of these, my experience has always been the same. I'm into it. I buy it. I'm ready for the digital tablet. I'm ready for that lifestyle. I'm ready to have everything in this one little device. And then a year or two goes by, and I realize I haven't picked this up in a while. So I retire it, and I just go back to using my phone and my computer. And then they release something that catches my eye, and I go, you know, maybe it was the size. That one was pretty thick, and the screen was a little big. It was kind of heavy. Maybe this little one that I could almost, if I wore carpenter's jeans, I could almost slide this into the back pocket. Maybe this could be like a little memo pad, you know, like this was before the Apple Pencil, but you could get stylus back then, third-party stylus. You know, maybe I could do that. And I buy it. And I use it, and I'm into it. And then a year or two goes by, and I realize I haven't picked that up in a while. And I go back to using my phone and my computer. And then a new one comes out with the new stylus, the fancy Apple Pencil, and the keyboard case. And I go, that's more versatility. That's what I needed. It just wasn't versatile enough. And I think this size actually is good. You know, it's the size of a piece of paper. And I buy it, and I'm into it, and I use it. And then a couple of years go by, and I realize I haven't picked it up in a while. This particular one, the most recent one, when I moved, I got here, I started unpacking. I'd been here almost 2 months. And then for the first time in probably 4 months, I had the thought, hey, where's my iPad? 4 months. It hadn't popped into my head. And I had to search for it. And I had to find it. And it was buried in some box. And the battery was dead. And like I said, you know, the battery's dead now. And I told you I can't find the stylus. I don't know where the Apple Pencil is. I've gone through everything. I can't find it. I lost it one time before. I lost the Apple Pencil one time for a year. And then I found it in the pocket of a pair of cargo shorts that I had folded and put in a drawer. That's my experience with the iPad. It seems like a good idea, but I just never click with it. So what makes me think this thing is going to be any different? Well, the one thing I didn't mention about the iPad, that's the biggest flaw, I think, with the iPad, is the fact that it can do so much. You spend more time thinking about, what apps can I put on here? Which one's the best app? What drawing app is the best app? Which note app is the best app? Which reading app is the best app? What video games can I play on here? Which browser should I be using? What should I have on my home screen? Should I use folders? Should I use widgets? None of it really matters if you don't use the device. This is a more limited device. So before we turn this on and I check to see if the software is updated and I get my first impressions, I'm not going to tell you how it works because guess what? I don't know. I watched some videos. Man, I got a lot of ink on my finger. I watched some videos, but I still have to learn, so I'll probably do some more videos later. But I just wanted to get my first impression on what it is like to write on this. And I do understand what I read or what I watched in some videos when they were explaining the screen. It looks different in person. Not drastically different. You know, I'm looking at it through the camera right now, and then I'm looking at it in my hand. And it looks different, but I can't tell how it looks different. This seems whiter, and this seems grayer. Even though maybe they're not. There's just something about the way the light hits it when you're holding it that makes it look, it's darker than paper, but it's not as, it just doesn't look the way it looks on camera. So let's put it into this, because there's one thing I want to say about this before we go into the writing experience. I've watched people do this. Let's hope I do it right. I don't know if I showed you that. See, there's a notch that goes all along the back so that when this clicks in, it is in the case securely. Oh, there we go. I was afraid I was going to break it. I mean, that's... I mean, it's like it's glued on there. It feels like one object. Okay, so what I wanted to say about this case. When I first looked at the Supernote, my first question was, does it come in black? Does it come in gray? Does it come in anything but white? And then I've never heard any other reviewer mention this. I don't know if anybody else has noticed. But when I saw it in the case, I understood why it's white. You see this. It looks like a Moleskine. It looks like a Moleskine notebook. Let's get a Moleskine notebook. Okay, this isn't exactly a Moleskine. I can't find one right now. But this is an actual paper notebook. And this will prove my point right here. Black, hard cover. This is not leather, this is real leather, but you get the point. What's it look like from the side? White. What's this look like from the side? White. White. The reason the Supernote is white is because when you put it in the cover, it looks like a notebook. And I love that because tablets are not new, but they're still a transitional device for many of us. And if you can get this to look and feel and to trigger many of the same feelings and emotions you have for a physical notebook, it makes it easier to bond with this device. And by the way, this is a very nice smooth leather. So I think that's why the Supernote is white. Because if I was walking down the street and you saw me carrying this, you wouldn't think, hey, look at that tablet. You'd say, yep, notebook. And that, I think that's a lot of careful thought put into the device. This is where the pen goes. And I just put the fountain pen in there. All right, that's the right pen. No worrying about the magnet and whether it's going to hold or stick. You just use it the way you would a normal notebook. Clip the pen on there. Okay, let's open it up. Let's see if I need to update anything. There's what it looks like. Let's get you a little bit. Let's get you a little closer. Oh, there's a light. We got a red light. Does that mean it's not charged? Or is that a good sign? That's a good sign. Supernote logo. It's interesting that it's 2 words here and 2 words on the box, but everywhere it's written online as 1 word. Ooh, look at the ink spreading. This is the boot up sequence. And English, United States. I'm going to set this up and we'll come back. I'm not going to show my Wi-Fi password. Okay, we are up to date. It was already up to date, which is pretty cool. And I have not written on it yet. I went through all of the boring stuff you don't want to watch. I can say one thing so far. I did have to use the keyboard, the on-screen keyboard, to type in my Wi-Fi password. And usually on e-ink screens, like the Kindle, which is buried in a pile over there now, typing on an e-ink screen is usually frustrating is an understatement. Infuriating. It's the worst experience ever. This, while not as responsive as an iPad keyboard, was probably, I don't want to put a number on it, we'll just say dramatically greater than any Kindle or other e-ink device I've used a keyboard on. So like I said, I'm not going to go into any of the features, but I am going to do some writing because I want to see how this feels. See, the thing I didn't explain about this yet that makes this device in particular different than not only tablets like those, but other e-ink devices is, first of all, the body's plastic, which might sound like a bad thing, but I'm so tired of metal bodied things because it's actually fragile. I think we should go back to plastic phones because they did better when you dropped them. And this is not glass. This is plastic. And there is a screen cover over it, which is why you're getting so much light diffusion. That's built in. It's not a screen cover that you remove. It's built into the device. And from what I understand, it's soft. Not like super soft, but it's softer than glass. So that when the tip of your pen, here, let me do this on my finger. Can we get focus on that? There we go. So when you're on glass, it's like writing on a nail, right? You push on it, it pushes on you, and nothing changes. You know, it's hard on hard. But when you push on something soft, which maybe a blue finger is not a good example, see how that goes in? And then it bounces back because that's what flash does. This screen does a similar thing. The tip digs in a little bit. And then when you lift the pen, and this is to give not only a softness because paper is a little bit soft, but it's also to give some drag and some resistance like paper does. Does it achieve it though? My first experience here. Should we zoom in more? Maybe we should zoom in a little bit more. Let's try it in my hand. Okay, first of all, I don't see any lag, and I've heard other people say that too. What does it feel like? Does it feel like writing on paper? Sort of. I think the first thing is you're not going to forget you're feeling the hardness of this device in your hand. So when you're writing and you feel that, your mind is connecting that this is a plastic device or that it's a solid device. But when you're writing, it does have that just a tiny bit of resistance like paper. You know, with like the glass screen, and I could do that here too, but can you hear it? it's pushing back. Let's try the other pen. This one's pressure sensitive. That's fun. Ooh, that's neat. So you can erase your stroke without, if you just don't lift your pen, it will erase the last stroke you made. You don't have to do this. That's nice. Okay, so far, I'm stoked. Oh, did I mention fast open? Yep. So it's off right now. I want to write something. Boom! You know how much time, and you know how much faster that is than the Kindle? Where's the Kindle? Let me show you. This is not even to write. This is just I want to read. So here's the ad. Technically, this is off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 1.5. Let's do that again. Oh, that's so good. One other thing that I want to mention that's just cool is, can you see that line on the side there? Focus. There we go. I'm talking about this little gray line there. That's actually a touch. It's not a pad, but it's a touch surface. And when you run your finger down it, you get a menu. And this is actually the closest thing to a home screen. This is where you can put quick access to files that you want. And then also, because it's an e-ink, I'm so annoyed by that light. I'm sure you are too. Because it's an e-ink device, sometimes you're going to get ghosting, which is when, I don't know if you know this, but an Etch-a-Sketch, I jumped the gun. An e-ink device works similar to an Etch-a-Sketch. So the reason that it looks like ink on a screen is because these are actually particles that are being magnetically pulled to the surface. So sometimes, just like an Etch-a-Sketch, you get ghosting. I wonder if I can create some ghosting here. It's actually pretty good at not ghosting right now. I can see a little bit there. I don't think you can. The camera's not going to pick it up, but there's a little bit of ghosting here from what I just did, a tiny bit. Well, if I take that same bar, anytime I want, I can just refresh the screen. There it goes. Refreshed it. That's a fast refresh too. Super fast refresh. And for size comparison, once again, similar in format, size format. I know this is black on black, but similar in size format to the iPad. So let's take all that stuff off the screen. One thing I wanted to say. I just did a video not too long ago about the utility of index cards. And why is that so bright? Wow. Let's get those out of there. They're blinding. Talked about the utility of index cards. I love writing in notebooks. I know this looks good on camera. I love the experience of this. And one of the things that I was telling somebody the other day that I could never see replacing this, because I like the fact that when I finish a notebook, I have an artifact. What I mean by that is this. Everything I've written in it, when I'm done with this notebook, it's not like the Rocketbook thing, you know, where you put it in the microwave and it wipes everything out. The ink stays. And I put these on the shelf. And maybe a lot of people don't do this, but I read my old notebooks. I like to remember things I thought before, remind myself of ideas that I forgot. So I didn't see how, like the iPad, I could never, like Apple Notes, it just could never see myself putting my notes onto there in handwriting format or in typed format, because I was never going to want to review them on that screen or on the computer screen. But with the Supernote, it's possible. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but I'm thinking it's possible, because this changes two things fundamentally from the iPad. Number one, it's easier on the eyes, so that I would review it. I would pick this up. This is a device I want to read on. That's the main reason I bought this, is I want to read on it. I can put PDF and EPUB books on here, which means I don't have to go to Amazon. And you can put the Kindle app on here if you want, but I want the freed files on here. And if I can read them on here with comfort, why can't I read the notes I create on here with the same comfort? You can create, if you're familiar with like Notability and GoodNotes and those kind of apps on the iPad, you can make notebooks, digital notebooks. But what's even more interesting to me is, if I want artifacts when I finish something, I can do a yearly journal in here, and then when I get to the end, I can export that journal to PDF. So I have a backup of it. I can put it on a hard drive, I can put it in the cloud, and then I can keep it on the device as well. And then when I want to go back and review them, I can open the PDF like a book. It's different than opening an app where you can edit. That's kind of my point. By taking it and making it into a PDF, I'm making it into the artifact like this. Yes, I can go in and edit this, but only so much, right? I can scribble over words I've written. I can white things out. I can run a Sharpie across the page. I can rip pages out. But for the most part, I'm not going in here and changing words. I'm not fixing my horrible spelling. And that's the same experience here. If when I get to the end, I export it to PDF. The other reason that this is interesting to me is because of the flexibility that that digital notebook will give me over this. It's not flooding me with features like the iPad. It's just giving me a few more things, like the ability to take a page and move it somewhere else. It's really useful. If you're just in the notebook that you're using as your journal, and all of a sudden you start writing about a project, or you start writing out to-dos, you can rip that page out and put it in another notebook. Maybe you have a to-do notebook, so you can move that into the to-do notebook. If you write things out of order, you start with one idea in the morning, and then you get sidetracked and you're journaling about something else, and then you continue with that first idea, you can just go back to that first idea, say add a page. It'll add a page between that and the last one, and it can all be together. If something gets really long, you think you're only going to write like 1 or 2 pages, and it ends up being like 20 pages you write about something. You can pull those 20 pages out and make its own notebook for it. So there's a lot of flexibility with that. But then there's also the flexibility of something I didn't test any of the features, but here's our lasso tool. Let's make this a little more tangible. Say I am like, I'm writing the book. I'm just logging what book I wrote in the morning. Here's a podcast I listened to, right? And I'm continuing with the day. Places I went, store. This is so messy. I went to the store, then I got groceries. Oops. That was me pushing the button again. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching TV. That's cool. It's happening in chronological order. But what would be even cooler is if this location log stuff and this media log stuff was grouped together. Well, what if I do this? And now it is. Yes, that's stuff you can do on the iPad, of course. But once again, there's reasons that the iPad doesn't work for me. But this gives me those few flexibility options that a physical notebook doesn't. And those are the reasons why it's appealing to try it. And I am like 5 pages from the end of this notebook, so now's the time to try it. The other thing, reading books on here. Obvious why I want to do that, because it's a bigger screen. This is more substantial. And then the other thing I showed you at the beginning, index cards. This one is probably the least likely to work, which doesn't mean it won't, but it's probably the least likely to work. But what if I could take the index card system that I talked about in my index card as technology video from last week? What if I could find a way to make that work here? So that all of my writing is happening here. And it's not tied into Apple. It's not tied into Google. It's not tied into Amazon. This does, at the base level, run on Android, but none of the apps or anything in here. This is all made by Rada, the company that made this. And the other thing that I love about this is the community and the people making this app seem to actually care. They don't build these apps and make a new one every year. As far as I know, they've only made 4 tablets ever. There's the A5, which is the predecessor to this. And then there's the A6 and the A6X, which are like the size of that iPad mini. Maybe a little bit bigger. I think they're this size. Yeah, they're this size. This is an A6 notebook. So what their plan is to make devices that last a long time. Not only physically, but the software. They keep adding updates. They keep improving. I can't even count the number of updates they've made to this in the 3 years that they've been making this. They've been making this one device, 3 years. This device, with all the hardware you're seeing that works the way it does, is 3 years old already. They don't have a newer one than this. This is still their flagship. The A5 and the A6, I think they've been making them for 5 or 6 years. Those are older. They're different versions. They run on Linux instead of Android. They're still adding updates to those devices too. Making them faster, making them snappier, adding features, redesigning toolbars, redesigning home screens, making things work. And they want to open up to some third-party apps, but they want to be very, this is a word you should know from listening to this channel, curated. They want to be very curated with what they pick. They only want to pick apps that are good for the e-ink ecosystem. Because they don't just want to support themselves, they want to support the e-ink ecosystem. That more devices like this can be made. All of that puts me in their camp. Honestly, after looking at this, I think the idea of an e-ink phone is even cooler than it was before I held this. So I'm going to play with it for a few days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, who knows. When I feel like I have some, I'm not going to come back and tell you all the features and everything. There are more people, more talented than me that have done that, like Voya over at My Deep Dive. There's not a lot of videos on the Supernote, but there are a lot of people interested in this e-ink ecosystem. So if you go in and you type Supernote into YouTube, you're going to find videos by people. So we'll see what I think of it. Let me know what you think of it. Does this seem interesting? I feel like this is a nice medium between not giving up on technology, but not letting technology rule my life. This feels like a minimalist, a digital minimalist device. Let's see if that's what it is. Sorry for the shitty lighting, though. I'm not a professional.